Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. So this week I had a pretty hefty haul. Let me show you. Look at that. That is a really big haul. And also really pricey. Because we have $3.99 books, we have $4.99 books, we have $7.99 books, and then we got the big $10 books. So what was worth it this week? Let's find out. So number 20 for me is She-Hulk, Acts of Evil issue 1. This is an annual. And honestly, I kind of forgot that Acts of Evil was a thing. I kind of remember hearing it from the solicits, but that's about it. So, obviously as a She-Hulk fan, I wanted to pick this up. And I feel like it's really skippable. It opens up with her being a robot. It was strange. And, I like the overall story of, she was helping a client by the end of the issue, and she ends up winning this impossible case, but I didn't quite enjoy the narrative that much. And again, for a $4.99 price tag and a book that's not even on shelves to have an annual still doesn't quite make sense to me. Like next week we have Spider-Gwen. I'm like, okay, that has a book. Like, how do you have an annual of something that is not out? It doesn't, used to, in the old days, an annual was when a book came out for 12 times in the year. You're like, okay, now we have the annual. So to have 0 issues in the year, I don't think we need an annual. It could have just been called a one-shot or something. But, just wasn't a fan of this one. Artwork was good, though. But I'm going to give that 2 stars. That is number 20. Moving on to number 19. You guys will not be happy. I know I'm very much in the minority of this, but House of X issue 3. But it wasn't my least favorite, so there you go. At least it was only my second to least favorite. But House of X, it's just a book I haven't been able to get into. Honestly, it's just not my vibe. I did really like House of X issue 2, and interestingly enough, that is in red in the back. And then we have House of X issue 5 and 6 that are in red as well. So hopefully those are as good as that issue 2. But I'm just not feeling this. I'm just not really caring about the characters and the plant that they're searching for. I don't really care about that. I did like the explosive ending though. I thought that was cool. Artwork is good, but just can't really connect to the story as much as I want to or have with House of X issue 2 like they did with Mora, because they focused on one thing, one character. And I wish they did that with all the characters so I could care about the events unfolding. But House of X issue 3 gets 2 stars, and that is number 19. Moving on to number 18, which is Action Comics issue 1014, which is a book I'm thinking of dropping, which kind of sucks because I feel like I don't get as many DC books as I want to. I feel like there's not as many out. And also, if you don't like a certain direction for a character, it literally affects all the titles, so it's a little hard to pick up on them. Like Superman, I've been really trying to stick with it, but Superman I had to drop because I really was not enjoying the space stories, and I'm not like a huge Legion of Superheroes fan, so it wasn't like, oh my god, I gotta pick it up for this. And Leviathan I've been reading, but I haven't really been loving it. I think it's definitely stalling and prolonging its story, and there's not much plot going on there. And then Lois was a book I was super excited for because I love the character, but didn't really like those first 2 issues, so I'm thinking of dropping that one for next week. Then Action, this issue I didn't quite like. I was kind of bored throughout the whole thing. I also don't really like the artwork very much. Lois does not look like Lois Lane at all in this book. Like, that does not look like Lois at all. I don't know who that is. It looks like some random girl. But I did like the ending, and that's like, you got me. You got me. One of the books I'm really enjoying from DC is Naomi, so I gotta see Naomi and Superman. So I literally just liked the last page of this issue, but I'm like, all right, I'll give it a couple more issues. If I don't like the Naomi issues, I do believe I'm gonna drop Action Comics, though. But DC is releasing a couple more books, so we have, Legion of Superheroes coming out. We did have Batman, Superman this week, and then, there's a Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy is next week as well, which I'm picking up. So hopefully it will get a couple more DC books, even if I'm dropping a few. So Action Comics issue 1014 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 18. Moving on to number 17, which is Jughead the Hunger versus Vampironica issue 4. I haven't been enjoying this crossover as much as I like the individual stories, especially the artwork. I love Joe Eisman's artwork, but he only does 2 or 3 pages in this issue, and it's those last 3 pages. The rest feels a little messy to me, and also because they're trying to copy the artwork of Vampironica. It works a lot better with Greg Smallwood's artwork than with the two artists here. So I haven't been feeling this one, but I like the idea that they're exploring different multiverses. That's pretty cool. I'll accept that. I think that's really awesome. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed that part of the story. I wish this was more character driven than it has been. I expected that. I wanted to see more of the dynamic between Betty and Veronica. We get little glimpses of it, but I thought that was going to be like the main driving force of the series. So overall, I'm going to give this 2.5 stars, and that is number 17. All right, moving on to number 16, which is Batgirl, issue 38, which I'm really disappointed to see this year, because Batgirl is my favorite DC character. So, I just feel like the plot hasn't really been as interesting as it has been in the past. We get to see Oracle again, and I feel like that's all they've done with Barbara since DC Rebirth, is to have a random Oracle character that's not her, and she has to figure out who Oracle is. We had that in Birds of Prey, and now we're having it here, and they've done it in between there too. I can't really think of the other books that they did it, but they definitely have. So I'm just not feeling that part. I really didn't care for Oracle and how that's attached to this whole villain year, or Year of the Villain, which I also haven't really been enjoying as of lately. So we'll see where that goes. But, the only thing I really enjoyed was the Bard and Barbara thing. I thought that was really cool. I liked their dynamic a lot. I liked that he worried about her, but I really enjoyed Barbara's inner monologue about keeping a secret and not liking him. So, but he's really trying his best to be a better person. So, I enjoyed that aspect. The artwork is definitely not as clean as it used to be. I'm not a really big fan of that either. So overall, I'm going to give this 2.5 stars. I hope it improves. I got a cool cover out of it, but it's $4.99. I don't know if it's just that the variant cover was $4.99. It probably was. I'm guessing the regular cover was $3.99, but I mean, you can't say no to that variant cover. So I'm going to give that 2.5 stars, and that is number 16. Moving on to number 15. Not a bad book by any means, but a pricey book for the week. And that is Buffy the Vampire Slayer Chosen Ones, issue 1. It's a one-shot. It is $7.99. And that is why it's so low. I do not think this book is worth $7.99. And, I like Buffy a lot, but I also feel like I didn't really need these stories. I don't know how it's going to connect. Maybe it'll connect to the whole Hellmouth storyline they're going to have in September. It kind of starts, but October officially starts. So maybe it's going to connect, but I was like, all right, these are just kind of one-shot stories of previous Slayers. They're interesting stories, but I'm not a huge period piece fan, so most of them I can really jive with. But if you're a hardcore Buffy fan, I guess get it. But again, it depends what books you're getting this week, especially if you're getting like Marvel Comics 1000 and I think Batman Superman was $4.99. If you're getting those books, you might want to save your money on this one. So I'm going to give this 2.5 stars, and that is number 15? I think it's 15. Let's see. Yes, so number 14 is Absolute Carnage, issue 2. Not a bad book. I'm just not as invested in the story, because I read the first issue of Venom, and I said, hey, this is one great comic. But I personally can't connect to this. And I kind of feel the same way about Absolute Carnage. The reason I'm picking it up is because I'm a hardcore Spider-Man fan. And I have a feeling it's going to be tying into the Amazing Spider-Man. I don't remember if there's an actual tie-in issue, but I'm sure there's definitely going to be ramifications for Peter and the other Spider family members. That's why it's kind of a crossover event, or else this would just be in Venom. So as a Spider-Man fan, I'm really trying to stick it through, but I personally am not invested in this story. I really do feel like you had to read the other Venom issues to really get into this. But there's some good progression. I did like that Miles is being, the Carnage is going into Miles. I thought that was cool. I like that we learn a little bit more about Eddie's son. So there's definitely some movement. It's just not for me. And I'm not even reading a lot of the tie-ins, and I do feel like some of it does tie into them. So we'll see if I continue this one. But just to let you know, this is a really good book, but it's just not my taste. So I'm going to give this 3 stars. Moving on to number 13, and that is, speaking of Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man issue 28. This is just a really weak arc. I don't necessarily think it needed to happen. I know that Nick Spencer is a big fan of the Beetle character, and you could really tell here, But I feel like because we didn't know Randy and her relationship, a lot of it, you don't feel the emotional investment because Beetle's like trying to be a good person because of the relationship, but also she wants to be a bad person. So if I saw that development, I would maybe feel for this issue a bit more, but we never did. So it just kind of feels like a throwaway book, but it does have some good emotions in it, but it's just very filler to me. So yeah, we'll see where it ends up going. I mean, I'm sure it'll connect a little bit to Aunt May and Randy's story, of course, but I'm excited for the next arc. I also didn't really like the kind of bulgy artwork. That was also another aspect that really deterred me from the issue. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 13? Moving on to number 12, which is Marvel Team Up issue 5, which seems like it's just Miss Marvel teams up with everybody. I don't even know if this book is still, like, going on after this. I haven't really looked at the solicits to see if it is. I feel like this is not a book that would last very long, but I like it. I bought it because I love Kamala, and the first story was her and SpiderMan. I love both those characters, and then we have Captain Marvel, and, like, we don't really get to see this as often as you would think in comics. And this issue, I don't really love the coloring, especially. It felt very damp to me, and the artwork is okay, pencils wise, but yeah, the coloring really threw me off for most of the issue. Just I think you need that brightness for the book. But it was cool to see a bit more of the Kree history and Kree mythos get involved in this story. I thought that was cool, and how both Kamala and Carol were able to help each other. So it was fun. Maybe a little bit forgettable, but it's just cat in the middle for me in this one. So I'm going to give this 3 stars, and that is number 12? That was number 12. So moving on to number 11, which is Angel, issue 4. And this is the weakest issue of Angel, but still, I love this book. I really do. Most of the issues, this vision or dream that's in, I think it's in Fred's head, I believe. And Angel's kind of stuck there, and we get to see a lot of foreshadowing of what's gonna happen, especially with Buffy and everything. But that also kind of deters me, because, like, as a Buffy fan, I'm like, okay, I get they have a connection, but if I never have seen Buffy before and am a new reader because I've always wanted to get into Buffy, I feel like you might be a little lost here. And I thought that this was supposed to be new reader friendly, but I love the ending. I really enjoyed Gunn coming back, so, and I liked the way it was all worded, and I guess also the kind of setup we're getting for this Buffy Angel event, but I kind of wish this happened before, or, after Angel and Buffy kind of meet, talk a little bit more. I know they've met in this book, but I want them to, like, actually build a relationship. I feel like this issue would have been a little bit stronger within this continuity. So Angel issue 4 gets 3 stars. Definitely got me hooked, though, by the end, and really excited to see Gunn and just seeing Angel investigation kind of form, which is really cool and a big part of Angel. Alright, moving on to number 10, which is Batman, Curse of the White Knight. Issue 2, Book 2. I don't know how many issues this actually is, but I don't care about Azrael, and a lot of this issue is about Azrael. That has been the big downside. The stuff I did like was definitely Barbara's identity being revealed, and the consequences of Joker's actions, Batman's actions, and now Commissioner Gordon's actions, and that Gordon didn't know his daughter was Batgirl, and this is the dream scenario I've always had, because I never knew. I think there was always a lot of story possibilities for him knowing. I feel like there's been so many years that he hasn't known, so I just feel like it would be really cool. So it's nice that we're getting this Elseworld story in a world that he knows that Barbara's Batgirl, so I love that. But the rest, again, Azrael, man, is like 2/3 of this book. Artwork is really good. I mean, it's cool that Sean Murphy is doing it all, and it seems like he has a lot in the bucket. He's done a lot, so there's no delays for this book either. So, overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. Not as strong as that first series yet, but definitely has a lot of interesting storylines that did come from that first story. Like the Barbara storyline in this issue. Alright, moving on to number 9, which is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, issue 42. And this is a pretty good issue. I do feel like they try to squeeze a lot of stuff in. And again, going into my own personal preference, I'm not a huge space fan or cosmic story fan. And a lot of this issue has to do with them going to the new planet and a planet actually they've been to in Go-Go. But I like their snazzy clothes, though. That was cool. They get to wear some interesting clothing. And I did like that Trini was connecting to that other ranger and learning more about her, so that was cool. There is a slight bit of exposition in this issue, especially with that Blue Ranger, because they do have to explain a lot about Shattered Grid. And then we jump to Tommy and Kimberly running on the Great Wall of China, which was a cool scene, but I don't know if it really fit in this issue, because again, you have this like really heavy exposition-y stuff with the space story, and then you just kind of have date night with them. And I kind of wish that we get to see the Rangers in different issues, because it does feel a little bit like Whiplash, because you have these new Rangers that are just trying to get used to stuff, and then you have the very experienced Rangers dealing with a lot of heavy Power Rangers mythos. But still, like I said, I think it was a really fun issue, and as always, Ryan does such a great job at character moments, and there's a lot of fun ones and a lot of mystery being built here. I think once again it's a very point A to point B issue, and I'm excited for this to kind of all explode once we have a chance for that. So Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 42 gets 3.5 stars, and I know today as I record this it's Power Rangers Day, so congrats and happy Power Rangers Day. I don't know what to say about that, but yes, it's cool that's Power Rangers Day. Alright, moving on to number 8, which is Power Pack Grow Up issue 1. As you guys know, I am a very hardcore Power Pack fan. But I think what's so interesting about the Power Pack, even though I do love the original series, it's how they've grown as characters outside of their original series. I enjoyed the All Ages book, but I also liked, Julie in Avengers Academy, getting to see Alex in Future Foundation and how they've grown past being the youngest superheroes in Marvel. But here we go back into that nostalgic realm where they team up with Kitty, who's like 13 or 14 in this book. And it's very old school, and it's a good way to celebrate Marvel's 80th anniversary, which they continue to do with these one-shots. And I'm glad Power Pack got the spotlight. Is it the most memorable issue? Not really, but it's characters we honestly don't get to see very often, especially because most of this issue does focus on Katie, which the only two characters that are being focused on Power Pack right now because of Future Foundation is Julie and Alex. So it's cool to see Katie again, and she's always an awesome character. Poor Jack, he doesn't get a lot, but I also love the artwork. I love that it did feel like this old school Power Pack book, but it was really bright, and that's what made it feel very modern, so the coloring was really good. I don't really get why they switched artists or even story plot lines by the end of the issue, because it felt like more of a continuation, but I do love that artist a lot, and it fits the all ages idea of Power Pack. But yeah, it was a fun issue, and again, it's cool to see the spotlight with them. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, and these are all 4 and above books, so let's get into it. Number 7 for me is Batman Superman, issue 1. See, I have actually a couple of DC books that are a bit higher here. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed this book. I was looking forward to it. I am a Batman fan, so it's always cool to see him have another book, even though he has a million. But I always enjoy them. And here, what I like is that usually the Batman Superman books, they're always kind of one-shotty. They're just like, okay, here's the story. This actually feels like an event. So we get to see Shazam, Who Laughs, is introduced here. So I'm actually not a huge Batman Who Laughs fan, but I felt like this made it very new reader friendly. Even though I know who he is and I've read issues with it, I'm not really following Justice League and the Metal stuff. Like, I read Metal when it came out, but I was not very invested in it. So it's nice that I feel like you don't really need to know anything about Metal or anything to do with any of that and still get a new perspective and new idea with this. So I thought that was really cool, and I had a fun time with it. And I hope that kind of feels like an event every issue, like these power hitters should, because that's what really attracted me to this book. And the artwork, man, Dave Marquez, so happy he's at DC. I mean, I love his work. I also love his work at Marvel too, but it's cool to see him drawing different type of characters. So love his work, and he did a great job. So yeah, Batman Superman gets 4 stars. Definitely interested to get more, and I thought it was a really good setup for things to come. Moving on to number 6, which was my most anticipated this week, and definitely the best cover for this week, and that is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 11. It was fun. I mean, that's the best way I could say it was. It's kind of light. It was definitely a light issue where Mary Jane saves the day. She's not a damsel in distress. I like the way Tom Taylor writes her. I don't think this is a blow your mind issue. You don't really get too deep into MJ's psyche. Honestly, most issues where it does focus on her goes deep into her psyche. So it's kind of nice just to have a fun issue where Peter sleeps and they're a cute couple. So that's pretty much the issue. Cable's artwork is still pretty plain for me, but like I said, the story is pretty surface level. Not in a bad way, just in a fun way, honestly. So Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 11 gets 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5. And these are all 4.5-star books. And number 5 for me is Fantastic Four 4 Yancy Street, issue 1. Fantastic Four has been rocking it this week, this year. I guess this week too, but this year they've been really doing a great job. I think it's some of Dan Slott's best work. Now we got Jerry Dugan writing a story, or Jerry Duggan, and this was really good. And also, The Thing has been getting a lot of stuff, and that's awesome. It's, I feel like most of the time it is Reed or Human Torch. I mean, Invisible Woman doesn't get enough either, but at least she got her miniseries. So it was nice that the 2 characters from Fantastic Four that I feel like don't get enough service really did this year. And with this one, we get to see how close Ben is and why he cares about Yancy Street, and then, hearing the story about his brother for the opener, and then having somebody graffiti the youth center with his name, or honoring his name, I thought was really touching. And then we do get a little bit of a filler story with the villains that show up, and I thought Bagley's artwork, as much as I usually like him, wasn't the strongest, but I mean, Greg Smallwood doing a Marvel book was really cool. I've only seen his work for Vamp Veronica, so it was really cool to kind of get that emotion here. So that was really awesome. Here's some artwork for that. But I enjoyed this issue. I think the hiccup was the superhero stuff. And then in the end, where it's just that Dr. Doom was this old lady, or I guess controlling this old lady, was kind of weird as this punchline. But everything else was so emotional. And you just see how attached the Thing is to Yancy Street. And that really matters. And I liked his conversation with Reed. I thought that was really good. Invisible Woman, she kind of shows up, and then Ben says, "Oh, she was angry at me," and that didn't really feel like their friendship. But I mean, it's kind of a throwaway line. So I'm gonna give this 4.5 stars. Again, there's small nitpicks, but mostly a really good emotional book. If you're into the Fantastic Four, I definitely recommend it. And it's a good one shot, and I think that's $4.99, maybe. Yeah, that's $4.99. I think that's $4.99. That's worth spending. All right, moving on to number 4. So this is DC, and that is my favorite DC book out, and that is Dial H for Hero, issue 6. Man, oh man, this book. It needs to win some awards. I mean, has it yet? It should, because look at this. Look at this book. The art style, man. The different art styles shown throughout is so good. We got an all red thing here. We open up with Alex Ross style artwork. I mean, man, Joe is so good for this book. And yeah, and even the funny origin stories of these different characters was really cool. But then you have and this is Bruce Timm style, man. And then you have even an image, I think, of the comic in between. So in the digital version, they actually have a staple for this. That was pretty cool as well. But yeah, I mean, look at that. That looks exactly like Bruce Timm's work. I'm sorry. I'm just awing at this artwork. But I also really like the emotion for this issue, where we get to see Miguel, embrace his inner Superman. And I really enjoyed that. And there's just so many great things in this issue, from, again, the very imaginative way of storytelling to Miguel's heart, but then also really good plot progression as we get to see people kind of desperate for the H-Dial, and then different H-Dials and different multiverses. It's such a cool cool book. I'm having a blast with this. I am so happy there are 6 more issues to read because, like I said, this is 100% my favorite DC title right now, and definitely one of my favorite titles going on right now as well. So I give that 4.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3. Number 3 for me is Spider-Man Life Story issue 6. This was heart-wrenching, honestly. I didn't expect it. Like, I think we all expected the end of Life Story is going to be a death. But it was, like, almost matching Ultimate Spider-Man death. And I love that book to pieces, the death of Spider-Man there. So, I really enjoyed it. At first, like, I didn't really know what to expect, like, what story they're going to put a twist on. We have a Venomized Kraven on this spaceship. And we see that the world has changed with different civil wars going on. We get to see our spider heroes differently as well, like his daughter, who's Mayday Parker, pretty much that character without saying it. She's a really good hero. We have Miles, who seems a bit older and kind of has a similar origins to his Ultimate version, but in the 616. So that was cool. But the surprise was superior Dr. Octopus, superior Spider-Man here. As much as you think, it's 2010s. Like, I don't know. I don't go into it thinking, this is going to be the superior Spider-Man issue. I just kind of read it, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then you read it, and it was really good. Now, I will say the lull of this issue is the Dr. Octopus, like, in his head. But the words said and the words traded and the impact it made towards the end was really special, especially Peter saving Miles and Miles really taking that to heart. And I love the ending about his dream, about, obviously he has so much regret in his life and the idea of responsibility is always haunting him. And then in the end, he's like, no, it was a good dream. I had a good dream about Uncle Ben. And then him talking to an old MJ and then having MJ in his head the whole time. Oh, man. So good. And I mean, Mark Bagley does a really great job here, too. It just feels like classic Spider-Man. So, I really enjoyed this. And if you haven't read Life Story, and if you're a Spider-Man fan, it really does put an awesome twist on the Spider-Man stories so I recommend it. So, I'm going to give that 4.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Runaways, issue 24. I just had a blast with this one. It's not as twisty as the other books I talked about, or, emotional, hard-hitting stuff for this one. But it was fun. It's just Nico and Karolina teaming up with each other and being horrible superheroes. And I love the jokes that Rainbow has in here, but also, like, the real issues of, like, Karolina realizing, okay, I can't really punch anything here. Like, the things that are happening to people have nothing to do with punching people. It has to do with homelessness and, drugs and everything else. So, I enjoyed that. My small nitpick is that I kind of wish they dealt with Nico's powers a little bit more, because I guess I'm a little confused of, we had the staff idea from, a couple of issues ago, where it seemed like she had more control of her powers, and now that she still has one spell, I thought that corrected things. I kind of wish that was referenced a bit more, that her powers have changed, and it didn't really look like it did here. But we are leading into the new superhero team, the unknown hero in the end of the issue, so that's really cool as well. And I love the artwork. It honestly does remind me a lot of Chris Anka's style, and that's something I really enjoy. There's some really good emotions here. The coloring, Matthew Wilson, my favorite colorist of all time. He does such a great job. Everything looks like a sunset, so I enjoyed that. It's just a really fun issue, and if you like the Runaways, I think this is a really good continuation of what we've been getting. So that was a lot of fun with a lot of, like, more emotional books this week. Moving on to number 1, and that is, and I got 2 copies of it, Marvel Comics 1000. So I was actually going to get 3 copies of this, but I guess I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it's kind of pricey. But I will show you my She-Hulk one, which I did use for reading, and that's the 80s cover. I was going to get the Ultimate Spider-Man one, but my store didn't have that. It might have been like you have to order a certain amount of copies to get it. And then I got the collage, because there's a lot of my favorite heroes on there. We got Hawkeye, we got Gwen. I don't think we have Mayday on there, but that's okay. And this is also, I think, the same cover where they, like, had a DC cover on it, or a DC piece on it. They also got the Mary Jane and Peter marriage. There's no back, though, which is fine, because there's more than enough. I'm sorry, I'm just, like, admiring this cover. It's really cool, because we have, like, a lot of different years in this as well, which makes me get into this issue. Let me use my reading copy if I'm going to open it up. And I really enjoyed this issue. I was really pleasantly surprised. My only nitpicks, let me just start with my small nitpicks. Sadly, not every hero's included. You know, there's a lot of things that happen every year, but I think some, you know, important characters could have had a spotlight, like Spider-Gwen. Like, I think that changed a lot for Marvel. Jane would have been nice. Kamala wasn't really in this issue. Mayday, as a fan, I think would have been really cool as well. And I don't know what they even did for 1998. Some of it was like movie stuff. I'm like, okay, you didn't have to do the movies. These are comic books. We don't need to know about the Deadpool movie. Deadpool had about 5 to 6 stories. Let me see what 1998 was. So 1998 was, okay, I'll forgive. It was Marvel Knights, so maybe that weighed out Spider-Girl. But yeah, there still was a lot of Deadpool. And I don't know when Kamala was introduced. I feel like maybe it was like 2014 or so. I might be completely correct or wrong. And yeah, they end up using Miracle Man. Nah, man. Let's not do that. Kamala Khan. So anyways, not to go on a tangent, those are like my small nitpicks. And again, not everyone's favorite heroes are going to be included, and that's okay. But I really think this book did a beautiful job at showcasing all different spaces of Marvel Comics. And honestly, going into this, I really didn't expect much, because I'm like, how much can you do with one page? And I think they edited it very well, because you do have Al Ewing, who is definitely the core of smoothing out all these stories, and they all connect. And there's a lot of beautiful stories. I mean, as a Spider-Man fan, there was so many good Spider-Man stories. One, my ultimate favorite, which I actually shared on Twitter, was Mary Jane talking about Gwen's death. Because usually when we get to see Gwen's death, it is always from Peter's point of view, where Peter's like, I should have been there, you know? So it's really cool to see MJ 100% just spill out her soul in this comic, where she's like, I wasn't the person I am now, and Gwen was such a good friend to, kind of give me my space, but also just be there and be a genuine person. So I love that story. I absolutely love that story. And even the Ben story, where we get, I forget what year that was, but where Peter, it was 1984, so Spider-Man gets his own black costume in Amazing Spider-Man. Has nothing to do with black costume, but a really beautiful story, where we get to see Spider-Man save this woman, and the woman's like, hey, I'm pregnant, I'm gonna name my baby after you. What's your name? And Peter's like, Ben. And we get to see this guy's life throughout, and people celebrating Ben. It was so beautiful. So those are two that really stuck out. But then you have like the early days, which honestly I wasn't as invested in. It's just like, okay, like I don't really care about the old school Human Torch. But then you get like Patsy in her new costumes. That was cool. And seeing how some of these characters has truly grown. I like She-Hulk a lot. First of all, I love Chris Anka and Rainbow. So it was really cool to see them working on a different character. But also talking about what it means to be She-Hulk. Like, she doesn't like the she, but also, using it as, I guess somewhat of legacy as well. So that was cool. And kind of owning the name, I will say, even if she doesn't like it herself. So those are some that stick out to me. I know I'm going to be punching myself that I forgot some, because there was a lot of great ones. One, obviously, Young Avengers. I can't forget that. And it gives you a little hope. Maybe one day we'll get the Young Avengers again. And I love the art. I will say, little nitpick, not in a bad way. Cassie has her old school costume, and Hawkeye doesn't, so she has little like hoop holes, but Cassie does not have the Stinger costume, but that is definitely being a little nitpicky, but I love the book. I love the story. I love that there's like possibilities that the Young Avengers could come back, but like I said, I just feel like there's a story for everybody and any fan, and I really appreciated that, and I feel like you actually learn a lot about Marvel at the same time. Like, if you didn't know in 1940 whatever, the Human Torch was first introduced. Like, I feel like you do learn a lot about Marvel. If you're a new fan, if you're an old fan, you might learn more about the newer stuff. So, I thought it was a really cool book, and like I said, you could tell how much heart they put into this, and I just didn't expect that. I didn't expect a story of one page things could be so good. And as a Marvel fan, I just really appreciated it. And it's definitely a book I would reread. And probably one of the best anthology books I've read, in all honesty. Like a book that's placed like this with so many creators. I just thought it was, again, really well done and really thought out. So I'm going to give this 4.5 stars. And that is my pick of the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic & O. Definitely go check out my comic books, Like Father, Like Daughter, and They Call Her the Dancer. Go check out my Twitter and Facebook page as well. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Frontline Live, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. Thanks, guys. Bye.